How's it going, guys? My name is Falling Hurts, and happy Monday, it should be when this comes out. Without wasting your time too much or anything like that, today I just wanted to get into something really cool. We have another really big Sons of the Forest update, which was delayed by a week, but, it seems like it was pretty worth it at the end of the day. Now, as always with these updates, we've got the features, the improvements, which is a pretty long list today, the balance changes, the fixes, and then, of course, the audio changes. Now, this is a pretty cool list today, so with that being said, let's get into the features. So we've got the new end boss battle. So there's a new battle at the end of the game with a cutscene. I'm not going to be showing this for spoilers' sake, but we also have the addition of dedicated servers, which they've also included a guide to set up your own server if that's what you choose to do. And then another big thing is outside of the little scooter that we had before, we have the drivable golf carts, which to me, that's huge. Assuming that's probably going to mean that there's less of a chance you're going to wreck, it's a little more stable. And of course, they're already found all around the map as it is, albeit run down, so that's pretty cool. Next up, we have another new weapon, and that is the rifle. So this is really good. I think that's going to be something that's going to be fun at long range, or at least something that, maybe you don't have to be quite as close as the rest of the weapons of the game, because even the shotguns and handguns, you got to be pretty close. And then we have decorative frogs. We also have animal head trophies, which that's a feature from the first game, which I've been kind of longing for to be back in the game, so that's really nice to see. We also have new stone structures. We've got stone doorways, struts, windows, and pillars for detached placement as well. So once again, we're kind of building out the stone structures. And there's also a new stone holder structure as well. So if you want to store that somewhere, that's really nice. Also, if you're building out your base, there are now window shutters, which is really cool. You can open up and look outside, but still close them if you want to. Another feature that's been added is they've updated the environment on the east side of the map with more streams, waterfalls, lakes, ponds, cannibal villages, rope bridges, and more. Basically making it feel a little more lived in as a world, it seems, but then also, making it a lot more natural with the streams and the waterfalls. And then also, which this is something that I probably won't be showing once again due to spoilers and the fact that I don't know exactly where they are, there have been new story note pickups throughout the world. Which, if you listened to my review forever ago now, at launch, one of my biggest issues was with the story culmination and the fact that that was the most unfinished aspect of this game. And then finally, for the new features, we have the dirty water and clean water system has been added. So I'm really curious to see how that goes into effect. We can always clean ourselves off, which in the first game dealt a lot with our sanity, but that doesn't seem to be a thing in this game, at least not fully anyway. But let me know if that's something you'd like to see in the future. Not that I have any say over it whatsoever, but I would love to know if people want to see that sanity system return. But next up, we have the improvements. And this is a pretty long list, but as always, I am going to go through all of them. So bear with me, and these probably won't have videos attached to them, just some gameplay in the background. We've got stones can now apply damage to things when they're thrown. You can now also attach stones or any length of log to zip lines rather than just full logs. A held relocated structure, like if you're trying to relocate something, in the building system, when you open your inventory, it's now going to get thrown instead. They've also added a new cat food visual, which is great because whenever I'm eating cat food, that's what I like. And then wall shelves can now store cooking pots as well, so that's nice if you want to have a new cooking shelf. That's totally fine. We just need a kitchen sink now. And then Kelvin can now finish building stone fireplaces, which is something I guess I never checked in the first game because I finished it myself. So I guess that's cool. They've also improved the look of a couple different items, including burning sticks material, boiling water, and they've also improved the performance of trees in water. I guess this was causing a performance hit of some kind for some systems. And then they've also improved the stone or rock text localization. Cannibal winter clothes now burn when the bodies are burned. The collected and added to backpack text when picking up items is now also localized, so I guess there were some translation issues with stuff like that. They've added level of detail support so that items in storage holders will disable when far away. So if you have a lower end system, this is probably a pretty big thing as far as performance to some degree. They fixed an issue with armor pieces on shelves having expensive scaled mesh colliders. They adjusted some duck landing spots on water that were over the land, which is really funny to me. Every time a duck's just floating, I think that's funny. Fixing floors also no longer reorders its planks. Disassembling a custom effigy now takes the limb you are targeting instead of the last limb added, so that's really nice as far as convenience. It should now also be easier to place furniture in crowded areas, and then they've also improved player on fire visuals. So I don't know how those two things go together. They don't, but I think it's funny that those are the two things that follow each other. They've also added a few different things, one being an idle variation to ducks and increased their drinking and eating rate when on lakes, so it looks like they're a little more busy. They've also added a new stone building tutorial in the book. They've also added some small cannibal camps to Cave D. Light bulbs can now also be used from the grab bag like the quick inventory and can be added to shelves. Players can no longer perform interactions when aiming their weapon, so I guess that would probably just break the game. And then players can also no longer open their inventory right at the same time when they trigger a hatch or security door interaction, which would just mess with the animations of these different activities. Fish on spears will now fall off when the spear is put away or thrown, which I guess that makes sense, but honestly, if you're like, hey, buddy, I got a fish, and then you throw it to him, maybe that'd be cool to just like stab him with a fish. I don't know, he'd become Aquaman or something. Another thing that was improved is that you can set armor racks to only allow single user to interact with them at a time, so multiple people can't be just putting their shit on there all the time. They've added some hot springs to some of the mountain areas, which is really cool. I don't know why that wasn't just a feature. And then they've also optimized the dismemberment blood splatter, the visual fixes for the cave entrances, like the shimmering density, seeing through the entrance from a distance. That was really nice. They've improved the lava impact visual, which is really nice because I felt like it was really not that well done when I was there. It looked cool and it looked different, but it didn't feel like lava. And then finally, for the last couple, they've set up stone beam and pillar electric wire elements, and then pillar detached placement now works with any combination of log quarters or stones. And to me, that's a pretty good list of improvements. Once again, one thing I always mention with the improvements, the balancing, and the fixes is that while it's not the flashy new things that you always like with these updates, it's the quality of life of smaller things that people don't think of, and it becomes a pretty long list. And each week, or each update I should say, it's becoming a longer list of things that you can do. But up next, we have a pretty short list for the balances, but I'll go ahead and read them. First off, drinking water will now cause a small amount of health damage. Boiling water, or collecting water from the rain collector for clean water. So that's where we get a little more of the dirty to clean water system. They've also added custom game settings to allow players to toggle the pausing of the world simulation when in inventory. So, maybe if you're in single player and you still want the game to go while you're opening the inventory, that's cool, but, not my thing, I guess. And then pausing in inventory now defaults to false in hard survival mode, which that's something I praised last update, was that the survival mode was really, really, really cool, or the hardcore survival mode. So this makes it even more hardcore. You've got to use your quick inventory much more. And for the demon boss, they've reduced his health and damage it delivers. Some of his attacks now have a longer cooldown, but they have increased his damage against structures. But if you're building any structures other than maybe a tent down there, you're bugging. That's all I'm saying. They have, however, added some additional ammo and health pickups to the corridor before the gold room, though, so that should help. They've also added rifle ammo chance to different ammo cases throughout the world, so once again incorporating that type of ammunition into the already established world. They have also doubled the strength of stone structures, so once again incentivizing building with stone rather than wood if you can afford it. And then finally, the gold armor now reduces incoming non-demonic damage by 30%, which honestly, I just don't know how I feel about this. The gold armor has been getting hit after hit after hit. It's a super late game item, and personally, I feel like it just makes sense that if you can wear it, maybe it slows you down a lot, but I think if you wear it, I think it should tank most of your damage. But maybe that's just me. Of course not fall damage or anything like that, because falling does hurt after all, but it is what it is. Next up, we have the fixes, which is a pretty long list, and when I say long, I mean really, really, really long. But to name a few things that they've updated, they have fixed some of the enemy things. For instance, the idle for heavy male cannibal audio being audible from far away, the demon boss in the overworld rescaling during some attack animations. But then, of course, there are a wide plethora of different fixes when it comes to building. They have fixed the cut pillar calculators, sometimes preventing cutting a half log high pillar into a quarter log high pillar. Which, once again, this is all getting into the nitty-gritty small stuff of building that a lot of people don't focus on or think about, but it's really important to those who like to build out really nice bases. They've also fixed incomplete stone beams, allowing removal of sibling beams supporting a pillar, so once again making it also pretty realistic as well. But outside of that, another thing that they always make improvements to are the AI, for instance, Kelvin. They've fixed the take item Kelvin order, causing player to equip the previous item before opening the grab bag. They've also fixed Kelvin sometimes able to get pickups from far out of reach, and different things like that just to make it a much more seamless experience. Outside of that, there's plenty of different things that I'm seeing, whether it be stuff with the cooking pots and the newer cooking system, the water and dirty water, and multiplayer fixes when it comes to the volume of whatever is in the fire, and different kinds of synchronization issues. But now finally, for the final bit of this update, we have the audio, which is always the shortest list, but here we only have 3 things. They have added all of the missing mouse over and pickup events, for instance, the action camera, seeds, light bulb heads. So whenever you're hovering over them in the inventory, they're now going to make their sounds again. They've also updated the distances on flare audio attenuation and tuned levels. So ideally, that probably means you're going to hear it from farther away, or maybe you're not going to hear it quite as far. I'm not really sure what their change is, but that's what they have adjusted. And then finally, the impact sound effects are now also triggered when they hit other pickups. So that, say you drop a pile of pickups, which are just items throughout the world, when they're all together, they're going to make a sound rather than just not making any sound whatsoever. So overall, this is a really cool update. Now that's everything we have from patch number 7 of Sons of the Forest. However, usually there's a hotfix pretty soon after, and there have been a couple of different small things. First off, they fixed the time of day pop after a boss fight. They've also fixed that carrying a rain collector or spring trap causes the player to slide. And they've added a tutorial of how to exit the golf cart, so I guess players aren't able to figure out how to get out once they do. And then finally, they fixed a case where cutscene queue could break in multiplayer. So not a lot here, but the hotfixes never are. They're usually just quick things that a lot of people are having trouble with that they can push out really quickly before the next update. Now, speaking of the next update, the actual time for that is shown on the screen here. So, haha, I'm making you watch the video if you were just listening. But really, that's it for me. With the new weapon, the new vehicle, and the plethora of new changes, fixes, and improvements, what was your favorite part of this update? What do you look forward to most to be added in the game? Is it something old from the original game that hasn't been added? Is it something new? Regardless, thank you so much for watching. My name is Falling Hearts, and yeah, goodbye.